Hello, this is the Medium Digital Podcast, and welcome to Truth Cypher, Episode 1. I'll give you a little background on Truth Cypher. It's a book I wrote. I think I had a kernel of an insight, and I extrapolated it into a short book. I've been calling it a booklet. It comes out to maybe it'll be about 40 pages. In a Word doc or something. So, maybe you could make that seem a little bit thicker than it is in a printed book. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read the introduction, and then I'll just provide a sort of commentary on that. So maybe I can reveal some other points that didn't come through in my more formal writing style. And I just wanted to note that it's a working document. It's not finished. I sent it to some people, and they had some really good suggestions. And I haven't gotten around to working on this a little bit more. I think there's a few more chapters I want to write. I keep taking in information and having more insights, or what I think are insights. I don't, what do I know? But with the reason I wrote this book is I think I came up with a theory that I hadn't really heard before, based on a lot of information that maybe a lot of people have heard before, but I'm synthesizing it. And I talk about synthesis in the introduction, what I think that is. So I guess without further ado, let me just read the introduction, and then I'll continue on the commentary. Okay, here we go. Title: Truth Cypher, Decoding a Base Reality Where Conflicting Events Are Simultaneously True, by Medium Digital. And I wrote a little quote that you kind of might see on a paperback to give you some idea of what this is. So that quote I wrote is, "A preposterous theory for a preposterous universe." Preface. I originally called this book Synthesis before the writing of it revealed a more descriptive title. Synthesis is the genre I am working in. Artist would be an appropriate description of my background. I am biased towards the right-brained, intuitive way of being. Professionally, I work as a designer, which is a discipline that merges the analytical with the creative to communicate in media. The idea for a work of synthesis came to me from hearing Randall, Carlson, and Hancock on the Joe Rogan podcast. Neither are traditional specialists or experts in the archeological and scientific fields they valiantly challenge. Carlson is a builder by trade. Hancock is a journalist. On that podcast, they described what they do in their books and research as synthesis. Synthesis is an empowering mode that gives uncredentialed people like myself a say in the tremendous issues of our times. As a creative person who has studied a wide array of unconventional topics, I believe I am well suited to synthesize information and offer an intuitive perspective that may have some value in how we collectively live our lives. I had a kernel of an insight. By exploring my own mind in the writing of this book, that idea has been clarified for me, and for you. I am no expert. I am allowed to explore, come to conclusions, and correct later. I invite you to do so. This book is a stop on that great journey. I make no claims that I am the holder of absolute truth when describing events that transpire, but as you'll find in this book, I do posit that we all hold within us a universe that is true to us. The problem arises when billions of these true universes overlap and produce what we know of as consensus reality. So that's the introduction. And I think, when I started writing this book, the inspiration really came on a Friday night, and I just started writing it. I don't even know, I had never planned to write this book. I just was I have this idea. I'll just start writing in Google Docs. And that's just what happened. And I just titled it Synthesis because I like that word from that podcast mentioned, that Joe Rogan podcast of, how Carlson and Hancock describe themselves. And that really inspired me because those guys are tackling the archeological establishment and the scientific establishment with well-researched information. And they don't have backgrounds in they don't have, I guess, credentialed backgrounds in those, in archaeology or science. Actually, you know what? I'm wrong. Randall Carlson actually does. I believe he's a Renaissance man, so he actually has studied geology. He has a degree in geology, I believe. But he's not. I don't know if he's like going to be cited as a mainstream source, in scientific papers. But he knows a lot about a lot. He's an artist and a scientist. It's very rare. I can say I'm certainly not that. I'm extremely biased to the intuitive mode of being because I'm an artist. But professionally, as a designer, I have to use analytical skills to translate this into something more concrete. So I think through my work I actually can get more to that centered place, which I think is that's sort of the place to be. Like you don't want to be too analytical and you don't want to be too intuitive. One could say analytical is too much order, and intuitive is too much chaos. And so you kind of need a mix of both. That's sort of probably a Buddhist idea. That's sort of, Jordan Peterson talks about that a lot. Like that is the mode to strive for. That's really the enlightened mode. I think our world is very biased toward, especially the materialist scientist world is extremely biased to the analytical mode. It doesn't give a lot of weight to the intuitive mode of being. You don't really find, maybe psychologists like Jordan Peterson will go deep, like Carl Jung, Freud. Like there's certainly great exploration that's been done into the subjective mind, but it's not really celebrated as far as I can tell, because you don't really get into the realm of concrete facts. You get sort of exploration within subjectivity. You have to make up your own mind about these things to determine what's true. So I feel like if as a person who operates in that, who recognizes I'm operating in that mode, what if I just wrote a book? I'm not gonna. What if I wrote a book that just explored my own intuitions about reality? And what you'll find I do in this book is I won't go into so many details trying to prove the scaffolding of the logic. Like I will give you the source for why you could do your own research as to what I'm building off of. But I'm not the credentialed scientist to tell you what to make of the slits experiment, or I'm not an astronomer. I'm going to say this is my take on precession. If you didn't know what precession was, now you can go look it up. Spend a few years of your life, being astounded by things. Look up. There's a lot of things in the world that you just might not know about. I didn't know about until recently. And as somebody who's practicing synthesis, as I've termed it, I start to put other things I know together with these other things that I've learned. So that's sort of where I'm coming from, just as a person. I think I probably said all I wanted to say about this intro. I think it'll probably get more interesting once I get into the chapters. I think, so I guess I'll just move on to chapter 2, or chapter 1 actually, and see where that goes. Thank you.